doing like a Zoom thing where I could have like a background or something, because I really have nowhere to be. Still can't see you.
Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Royce Morales is the founder and teacher of the Perfect Life Awakening program, author, columnist, and expert on mirroring. She empowers clients with her profound process that helps neutralize self-sabotage, shift stuck patterns and negative thinking by locating the origins of limiting, subconscious programmed beliefs. Live an authentic existence, discover your true purpose, connect with your higher consciousness, reset your life. Transform from triggered to empowered and attract what you truly desire and deserve by discovering what life is reflecting to you. Because it's all mirrored.
Hello, welcome to my show. I'm so excited today, even beyond the technical difficulties that, of course, we're having. I'm so excited today because we're going to talk about something that is not only fascinating, it's also important, really important, especially based on my co-host's understanding of cults and what she went through and how she's perceiving the whole issue of cults in our world. It's not just a few scattered things. She sees it as a cultural phenomena that's going on. And many people think that only vulnerable or needy people get sucked into cults, and it happens unknowingly or against their will. And I think there are some who choose a life in a cult thinking that it's a positive, empowering choice, even though or even if they witness what's really going on. It's really difficult to imagine that someone would want their life to be controlled by narcissists or, people that are into power, shall we say. Why would they choose to stay? What tactics convince them to stay? And of course, since we're talking about mirrors, are there mirrors from all of this? Are there important spiritual lessons for individuals to learn as well as the world? So, my co host, Azyzza Prieste, was brought into a cult as a small child. And even then, there was part of her that kind of sensed what was happening. When she was finally able to disconnect, she began doing extensive research on cults, concluding, and I love this phrase, she told me this when we were chatting. She said, concluding that our culture is actually cultish. I think that's such an important play on words, but it's true. And it became her mission to help others see the truth and to find the strength to leave. But let me give you a little bit of background about her, which I think is just so important and fascinating. Starting at the age of 4, Azyzza Prieste began traveling the country as an actor and a performer, raising civil rights awareness with his Mamie Till Mobley, who is the mother of slain activist Emmett Till. This icon taught her the power of action through storytelling and the importance of love in the face of hate. Those lessons burned passionately in her, and she undertakes and even helped her survive, withstand the mind controlling decades of living in a cult, which is just phenomenal. She's currently, which I'm so proud of her about, she's currently enrolled in a Golden Globes endowed filmmaking program that aims to use the scope of multi-genres to share her intense insights. I can't read my handwriting. She sent it to me so early in this morning. I didn't print it out. I wrote it. It's okay. I just wrote it. So she's going to be sharing her insights into structural oppression, American capitalism, and their connection to cults. So welcome, Azyzza.
Hi, I'm Azyzza Priest. Hi, everyone. Hi, Royce. It's so
Hi.
good to talk to you all the time.
I know she doesn't see me. I can see her, but she doesn't see me. Technology, what can I say? So, first of all, because I think it's important, I want you to tell us your story. Tell us what happened. How did you get involved in all of this? And how did you get out of it? Just tell us all of it.
Okay. So I guess I should I should start by saying that I'm kind of like half in, half out. It's really hard to be completely out of it when my mom is so deeply involved. Um and my mom is like my favorite person in spite of all of the we have a very tumultuous relationship because of the cult. That's what it does. Cults destroy families. um, they destroy relationships, they destroy families, and I've been fighting like hell to keep my relationship with my mother, and it's been really rocky. And so for that reason, I feel like I'm kind of half in, half out in trying to keep her with me. Um, but the ironic thing, part of why I love her so much and want to save her is, and I know I know, Royce, I know what you're saying. You can't save anyone. You have to like let them go through their journey, and you can't be a rescuer. I know. Um, there's still that part of me though, but basically my mom is the reason that I was able to actually even combat some of the control. Ironically, she taught me so much about what it meant to be a good person. Just how to be a civil person, how to be a good person, how to be someone who treats others as you want to be treated, and always making sure that you are uh, basically doing right by other people and considering other people's well-being, which are completely the opposite of what goes on in a cult. understanding that no one should be treated differently because of how they're born. All of these tenets. My mom basically got me involved with Mamie Till Mobley when I was 4 years old. And for those of you who don't know who Mamie Till Mobley is, she is basically the she was the catalyst for the civil rights movement of the 50s and the 60s. She's basically the mother. A lot of people think that it's like Rosa Parks got it started, but actually it started when her son, her 14-year-old son, and there are plenty of documentaries and movies about it. You can check it out. Her 14-year-old son went on a trip to visit, he left from Chicago and went to visit family in Money, Mississippi, and he whistled at a white woman. Um, and I say allegedly whistled at a white woman. Mamie Till had her own story and like theory about that, and I'll get into that. But he whistled at a white woman, and because he did this in Money, Mississippi in 1954, he was lynched horribly, brutally beaten to death. After they beat him to death and like flattened his face, they beat him so badly that his face was flattened. They beat him, they shot him after they beat him, which made no sense because he was already dead. But the shot wound was so big, Mamie said she could see daylight through the other side of his head. It was absolutely brutal. And they tied a gin fan around his neck and threw him in the Tallahatchie River. He was never supposed to be found, but 3 days later he rose and they found him. It was a whole thing. They didn't want her to, the governor tried to stop her from getting the body back, from opening the seal because they had him in a box. They put a government seal on it. They refused to let her open it. She, defied it. She defied those orders. Identified the body. They tried to say that it wasn't his body. She went to court and they acquitted the two men. Basically, the lawyer's argument, his closing argument was, I know that all of you Anglo-Saxon men in this jury are going to find these white men not guilty. And that's exactly what they did. And they don't tell the full story, which I'm not going to do here. But they don't tell the full story about everything that she went through just in the courtrooms. But eventually she had a funeral and they wanted to force her to make it closed casket. She did not do that. She made it an open casket. The whole city came out. All the magazines came out to photograph what was going on. And she said she wanted everyone to see, how ugly racism really is. And she put those pictures went all over the world, and it was the catalyst for the civil rights movement. Wow. And when she later on she realized that she was too painful, she couldn't bring herself to have more children, but she became a teacher and she became very active in her church, and she took on like hundreds of children that she taught in the school system and in her churches, and she created what was called the Emmett Till Players. And she taught them excerpts of Dr. King's speeches, and she wove it in with narration that I did. A lot of the narration, performed it anyway. Basically telling the story of the civil rights movement through the chronology of Dr. King's experience, right? And so those speeches tied into it all the way up from the beginning all the way up until the end. And she told the life story of Dr. King and about the work. And we traveled all over the country doing this. A lot of times it was just me, her, and my mom. And we got really close, and she taught me so much. And what I saw with her was what it means. And because I through her, I got to meet all of these amazing people. Coretta Scott King before she died, Rosa Parks, the Murray Evers, Medgar Evers' mother and his wife, just like all of these major icons, people who really made a difference in this world and in this country and had some sort of actual power, right? Like
Oh, geez. We lost her right in midstream here. Um, well, I'm sure she'll be back. Hopefully, there she is. Thank you. You
Okay.
disappeared for a second. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. Um,
Yes.
yeah, what I learned through those experiences and meeting people like that was that real power is humble. There's a
Yes.
humility that comes there's a humility and a grace that comes with the power of change, and when you can really do something monumental. There's a grace and a humility that comes with it. There's a softness about it, right? Even thinking about, like, even Jimmy Carter, who I did not meet, but Jimmy Carter, even, like, he just passed away, and you look at him and you see what kind of, like, humility, what kind of soft spirit he had. He wasn't grandiose, he wasn't looking for a limelight or anything like that. He just really wanted to help people, and
Yeah.
he did it masterfully. um but that was something that I was able to see when my mom got involved in this cult,
So
was
how
that the
did that
leader. How did that
how did
happen?
that yeah. Tell us that
So,
story.
okay, so I mean, technically it's not my story, but heard I've heard enough of, like, the lore or whatever. Basically, my mom is a stereotype. She came to Los Angeles in, like, the 70s or the 80s or something, looking to be a model and an actor, and she came to California, which is, such a stereotype of going to California seeking stardom or whatever, and then falling into some creepy cult. Like, is that not just the story? um, and she basically came into this place that was I don't know, it was a palace theater, and she went to, I don't know if she went to see the movie or if she went to the service or whatever, but they started showing one of these rapture movies, and according to the lore, my mom was too polite to, like, get up and cross over someone. So she stayed, and by the end of it, this man who was just bigger than life, and unbelievably charismatic, and full of power in his own way, came out, and that was it. She was hooked, just like so many people were just absolutely taken by this man, and he really did carry himself with a lot of power, and he was very commanding, not just of the stage and his presence, but of people. And he just was able to kind of force people to bow to him almost, because he was able to convince people that he spoke to God. And I will be completely honest, I think that you can, and I think, Royce, you can attest to this, you can tap into a spiritual power and misuse it.
Oh, of
You know,
course.
you
Yes.
can tap yeah, you can use your intentions to manipulate other people's energy, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what he did. But also what he did was he provided resources that people in that area weren't didn't have access to. So he
Wow.
was kind of all of these things rolled in one. He was a father figure. He was like a almost like a social worker. He was almost like a psychologist. He had he did all of he provided all of these services, and all you had to give him in return was your entire life and unquestioning loyalty. Um, and never questioning what he said or did, always accepting, his mistreatment, you know, um, giving him all hours of the day. This man would preach until uh, you know, 6 o'clock in the morning or even 8 o'clock. Sometimes people would like, and it was always service in the middle of the week because it took all of your time. So he would start at like maybe 7 o'clock at night and go for 12 hours or more. And you weren't allowed to leave. Because if you did, you were dismissing God or disrespecting God or being unappreciative, or you were going to miss something that was going to change your life, you know? And he really talked about how he trained people to basically do what he says, because what he says comes from God. So, people would get in service and leave and have to go directly to work. Like, it was insane. But that was the kind of command that he had. That was the kind of power that he had. He could compel you to confess your deepest, darkest secrets to the entire church, and then do some sort of penance that he makes up for you, whatever. You couldn't buy a house or move or visit family members almost without checking in with him and asking him if it was okay, if God said it's okay. People basically just weren't allowed to leave. And they weren't allowed to live. People gave up careers to do menial tasks like sweep the floors and throw out the trash for free for their entire lives. It was really intense stuff.
So I listen to this and I think to myself, I mean, I know you're saying fear and claiming that the information is from God, but did anybody say to themselves, wow, this something's off here? Did people leave? Did people question? Did people, I don't know.
Well, I would say people who questioned were ostracized. And eventually what would happen is that this guy would basically threaten them from, the pulpit. And it doesn't even have to come from the pulpit. It doesn't matter. If it comes from him, it's from God. That's it. But he'd threaten them and put a lot of fear in them, basically with all of these stories about how people died for leaving and people's lives were ruined because they left, or all of these different things, and people would actually perpetrate that. So there's a phenomenon actually, and this works two ways. It's people will actually What I've seen is that people will actually ostracize their own family or do things themselves, and then when it backfires, go, oh my God. Or when something completely normal, just life happens and it's unfavorable. Oh my God, this happened because I disobeyed this man. I disobeyed him, and this is what came of it. And that's the thing. It stops being God and it starts being this man. I disobeyed this man and God is punishing me. I didn't do what he said, or, like whatever. But there is an actual phenomenon. I forget what it's called, but there is an actual phenomenon where when you are under undue influence and you leave that undue influence, you actually start to attract the thing that you have the most fear about, that the person with the undue influence put into your mind and into your spirit.
Sure. Yeah,
So what?
The power of thoughts. Yes.
Yes,
And beliefs.
precisely.
Exactly.
Precisely. Like I was talking to one person who was in a completely different organization, who told me about how her cult leader constantly would tell people, oh, you can't go to California, because there was some draw where people like wanted to go to whatever, for whatever reason. And his big thing was, oh, you can't go to California. And if you go to California, you're going to get into a car accident and you're going to die, because there are so much traffic and this and that and the other. As soon as you get there, you're going to get into a car accident and die. And so this woman, she left, and that was her big fear. And she was just so scared that that's what was going to happen, that she attracted it. And that was the first thing that happened when she crossed into California. One of the first things that happened to her was that she got into a car accident, and she didn't die. clearly. But that was the first thing that happened was she got into a car accident, and it kind of puts you in a spin where you kind of can't get out of the fear because the fear is manifesting, but you don't realize that you're the one manifesting it because it's so deep in you and you haven't shaken it,
Yes.
you know?
And there's the mirror. Yes.
There's the mirror.
The
There's the
topic of
mirror.
our show. Yes. Oh
Yeah.
wow. It's amazing. So there you are, you're this little child, you're in this cult. How did you say that you kind of sensed that something was off? How did you live like that? How did you get out of it? What happened in that part of your story?
Oh boy. Well, those two parts are way at like very different ends of the story. When I first got there, I realized, that first of all, and this is what everyone who goes to that organization will say, this is, I mean, and it's different now, but he's dead, and it's a different organization now, but it's still there, and a lot of there's still vestiges of the old ways, but people and I came to that organization and said, wow, this is unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. Um, People are so deferential to him. It's yes, sir, this, yes, sir, that, no, sir, this. Even when he's talking, even when he's being terribly disrespectful, you just bow your head and take it and say, yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. And it's like that seemed, and it's things that seem really unnecessary, things that are, actually just abusive. And people were staying we were staying there until 3 o'clock in the morning, several nights a week, every week. There was something going on all the time. There were all of these exciting programs, and there was always work to be done. And the work that had to be done was always happening after service. And we'd be there until like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, either stuffing envelopes or cleaning the church or, doing whatever he felt needed to be done because he was trying to get the word out or whatever it was that he was trying to do. It wasn't up to him, it was up to the members of the church. And more often than not, it was the women, because in order to, in order to keep the men, especially in a time like that, in order to retain the men, as, same just like in society, in order to retain the men and keep the men comfortable, there has to be someone underneath them, and those are the women. So it works the same way in society as it works in a cult. You'll notice that there are a lot of, cults where, it's full of women and the women are the ones doing all the serving, but we'll get past that. But it was the way that he was treating people. It was the way that people were accepting treatment and behavior from him that they would not accept from anyone else. It was the way my mom was doing the same thing. It was the way everything that she had taught me seemed to go out of the window when it came to him. And I thought, well, that doesn't seem right. It was the way that women were, cults will control the way you dress. So women weren't allowed to wear anything sleeveless, even if it was very conservative. You weren't allowed to wear anything over the knee, even if it was very conservative. And you weren't allowed to wear pants because
Wow.
God said that pants are, an abomination and women shouldn't dress like men. And of course, my argument to this was, yeah, excuse me, I'm so sorry, that it might be, yeah, it may be in the Bible that it says that women are not to dress like men. But when you look at things culturally, first of all, let's talk about the fact that, there are pants made for women. So if you're wearing pants that are shaped for a woman's body, then you're technically not dressing like a man. And if you look at things culturally and like just kind of move across the world, you'll notice that there are some cultures where the men wear like long, almost dress like garments while
Yeah.
the women are wearing, kind of bulbous pants.
Yeah.
So then where does that, how does that fit in? How are they not dressing like them? You know what I mean? So that was, it was just all of these small philosophical things that just weren't adding up. Also the treatment and the fact that no one had a life. There was no life outside of that place, and you weren't allowed, at least you were discouraged from mingling with people from the outside unless you were going to bring them in. You were discouraged from mingling with people from the outside. The programs were designed to keep you in the institution almost every day. I actually had a hand in because I was I'll just tell you the juicy bit. My mom married this man. Oh, right, that goes back to her story, and I'll go back to that. Yeah, but it was just all of these things. It was, like I said, just the way he was treating people, the way people were broken. They were exuberant but also broken, and I didn't know what to make of that. I couldn't quite articulate it at the time, but I could tell that something was wrong. And I knew that I didn't like being treated that way. And I knew that I hated seeing other people being treated that way. And when I tried to say something about it, boy, did I get just landed into. I mean, it was every day, all day, all night. You know, like I'm a kid, I have to go to school in the morning, but it's 3:00 in the morning and we're, having this biblical conversation about why I am wrong in trying to, point out that he should not treat people badly. But going back to my mom, she joined this cult in like the 80s, maybe the 70s, I don't know. And she went back to Chicago after she had me. Went back to Chicago to take care of her mother or be with the family, I'll put it that way. And eventually.
Oh, shit. Oh, God. We lost her again. Hopefully she will be back.
See you now.
There she is.
There you are. I see you. So basically, this man told her while she was in Chicago that God didn't want her to date. God wanted her to act as though she were a married woman. So she did that for, for a long time. She did that for about 10 years. And then suddenly his wife died. And suddenly God said for you to marry me.
Oh, wow.
So that's what she did. And that's how I ended up, I technically I was born in the institution, but left when obviously my mom took me to Chicago, but came back to it. And she even admitted that it's a very different place than she remembered it, because all of the cult like culture, cult culture, was so heightened. And I also believe that because she had been away from it so long and she'd had this sense of freedom and this sense of, a normal world, even though she was still very connected to the leadership and to some of the members, it was still such a very different world. And she even admitted to me that it was a little weird when she first got back, but, she had to adjust because it's what God wanted,
So on that note, we need to take a break. We need to have our little promotional break. And I am so fascinated with this. And we'll be right back. And Azyzza is going to talk about how our world has become cultish and what that really is about. So we'll be right back.
Om Times TV. Do you want to break free from old patterns and limiting beliefs that subconsciously sabotage your life? What are your triggers, and what really is beneath them? Are you seeking answers to life's big questions, intrigued by the possibility of self-discovery that goes deep? Looking for tools to help you break free from hidden sources of feeling stuck, confused, and unworthy? Perfect Life Awakening takes you on an epic inner adventure that shifts your perception of yourself, others, and life permanently. Identify and overcome the origins of subconscious triggers and limiting beliefs holding you back. That's how you transform your mindset from the roots. That's how you liberate your spirit, awaken your intuition, and discover your true purpose. Dive deep into the mysteries held within. Embark on a life-altering journey of self-discovery. Be a trailblazer within your own life. Go from triggered to empowered because you deserve a perfect life awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back. I am talking with Azyzza Prieste, and for some reason, because of all the technical difficulties, I did not thoroughly acknowledge you, Azyzza, for your courage to share all of this with so many people. And I just wanted to really thank you for your openness and your vulnerability to come out like this, not just here, but everywhere in your life. I just think that's so admirable.
Oh,
Anyway.
thank you, Royce. I'm not vulnerable. I'm reckless. No.
There you go. You were talking, the last question I asked you, I don't think you thoroughly answered yet. So I want you to
sorry.
That's okay. No, it was fascinating. I want you to go into what you kind of sensed. I mean, you've already explained that you started to question some of the facts that were being given, and your mother was even questioning, how different it had become. But how did you eventually kind of walk away from all of it? What happened there?
So basically, I, as a kid, obviously didn't want to be away from my mom. She was, my mom, and we were very close. So I didn't run away, literally just so that I could, not be away from her. They put a lot of fear into me about trying to be with family or going anywhere else. So I was just stuck. They put a lot of fear in me about the future. God was against me. It was a lot. And I was just completely stuck. There was nowhere for me to go. They convinced me that I didn't have family. They convinced me, all of these things. But what finally got me to think that they convinced me that God didn't want me to go to school, like all of these different things. What finally got me though was like, I always knew that something was wrong. I always knew that but it didn't click for me, or I couldn't articulate, yeah, this is a cult, because to me, I'm thinking, oh, it's just a very odd church, because that's how most cults get you. Most cults are actually based on established religions. So it'll be a cult based on Buddhism, or a cult based on Hinduism, a cult based on Christianity or whatever. And that's how they think, that's how they get their claws in you, because you think you're getting something established. And it seems like maybe this is normal, but I knew it wasn't normal because I had already been to a different church before, where I met Mamie Till Mobley, and other churches that I'd been to. I met someone named Dr. Cat while I was what I thought to be fruitlessly in community college, because I knew that, thanks to them, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to go to like an actual university, and that I shouldn't go because God didn't want it. But if I could go somewhere where they could kind of control me and I couldn't leave, then that's all right. But little did they know that I happened to meet a psychologist, a cult exit counselor and teacher named Dr. Catwoman. And she has a book called Domination is Abomination. And she was my teacher. And she was teaching, I forget what the class was. It was some like psychological mix of, like, I forget what it was. But she was actually talking about cults, domination of women, in America, in the world, and about cults and how those things are connected. And I just happened to write. She wanted to, get to know the students. I wrote a little something, like she wanted to know about a trauma or something, and I did that. And she wrote in the sidelines of the paper, she said, "Listen, this sounds like a cult. You need to see me." And I think I had typed like in one like on the next page, I had said something kind of like, "Oh, describing it as kind of like a cult, but not." And she was like, "No, I called it. You need to see me. This is a cult." And so I started talking to her, and through her classes and her writings, I started to learn more and more, and was directed toward writers and former cultists like Steve Hassan, Margaret Singer, all of these writers who write about cults, and they've done extensive research. But what really got me was when I was just so hopeless, and I was depressed. I couldn't get out of bed. I would be in bed for 2 weeks at a time, not eating, not drinking, not doing anything, 2 weeks at a time. Because I'd already been used to being on a forced fast for 21 days. So what was 2 weeks? Stuff like that. And I was just so despondent. And I just happened to see Leah Remini's uh Scientology documentary about her
Yes.
fight against Scientology.
Yes.
And everything started lining up. And I started to see all of the parallels, and I started going, okay, so it's not just me. This is untenable. This is unacceptable. This actually is unacceptable, and it's not just me. And I can somehow maybe get out. And I just happened to have a friend who had a property that someone had vacated, and they were like, "Listen, this is the place for you." And it just happened to work out. I did a sneak move. I didn't tell anyone that I was going. I literally started moving out little bit by little bit, like a battered woman, just little bit by little bit, moving this here and this there, and just kind of, setting stuff up. And I think that move took me about 3 months altogether. 3 months of just moving little bit by little bit, until the day finally came, and my mom refused to talk to me because, she never wants to talk to me because I bring too much truth, and it's a problem. And, that was something, the triangulation that my dad did, because triangulation is a big part of keeping people in cults, is making sure that new members aren't talking to each other, to talk about how weird things are, that they're only talking to established members, and to pit members against each other if if one is being disruptive, and I was the disruptive one, and he needed to pit us against each other. So that triangulation was happening where he was making himself the victim, so she was always angry at me, and I'm the one who's trying to get in the way of her faith and just all of this stuff. So she refused to talk to me because I'm dangerous. And I said, okay, well, that's it. You're missing this opportunity to say goodbye. You're missing, like, you're gonna come back, and I'm gonna be gone. And that was that. I mean, there was a lot of God told me this, and the Lord showed me in a dream that you fell and you died, and this woman who's supposedly helping you, all of your friends are evil, and whatever, that this one is evil because of this, and no one has your best interest in heart, and like, just all of these things to keep me, to bring me back and to make me afraid of leaving the cult. All the horrible things that were going to happen to me, as she would say, they both would say to anyone who leaves and gets happy when something bad happens to them, like those kinds of things. But yeah, I mean, that was it in a nutshell. I mean, there was more to it, but we don't have time for all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean,
Wow.
I do want to say that is a very important part of getting out of a cult, is information. That's why cult leaders restrict information from the outside. And it's why we're getting so much disinformation in America right now. We're getting so much disinformation, and we're getting to the point, I don't know if you saw the Zuckerberg speech, but we're getting back to that point where we're cutting off information that might dissuade you from what the leaders are trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to be very important. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, because I was hoping that we would get into this, and we don't have that much more time. So I'd love for you to talk more about how America is cultish, or culture is cultish. How do you
Well,
define?
I think well, for one thing, there are so many different types of cults. There are religious cults, spiritual, metaphysical cults, political cults, ideological cults, cults of personality, which we're seeing right now with Trump. But so I think we're seeing it's becoming more blatant. It's always been there, but it's becoming more blatant. And I think the quickest explanation, or the quickest tier of this that I could give you, is maybe white supremacy. And maybe that's not even so quick, because when we think about white supremacy, we think about like the KKK, or like skinheads, or MAGA. We just but that's just one tier of it. And to be clear, like that hatred, that white supremacy hatred, is literally a triangulation method that the hegemony uses to protect themselves from the working class people. It is not, they pit us against each other, just like my stepdad was pitting my mom and me against each other to protect him and to protect his establishment from having someone get in there and like start convincing the important people, the people who are holding it up, that this is actually dangerous and toxic and not good for anyone who's underneath the leader. And white supremacy, that's, the hatred is just one tier of it. It goes throughout our entire country, and what it's supposed to do really is a means of control for everyone, white people included. It means you dress a certain way, you talk a certain way, you accept certain cultures, and a lot of the culture is exploitation. And we have a lot of propaganda. The majority of the media is propaganda, and that's movies included. You've probably heard where people say, oh, Black people are relegated to the best friend who's always helping, or always helping a white person on their way. Spike Lee called it the magical Negro, who kind of like, shows up, helps this person see the error of their ways and fix the problem, and they're wise or whatever, and then they go away and like have no, and we're still doing a version of that.
technology, come back. Anyway,
We
I'm
dress
trusting. There we go.
everything.
You're
Yeah, oh,
back.
there we go. Yeah. Down to the way we dress. You know, like corporate culture is very white supremacist. And the whole thing is that it's not about black and white. It's not about the races. It's literally about the way the hegemony wants it to be so that they can control everyone underneath them. The idea of having it be about, you know, black or white or, you know, races or whatever is literally just triangulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Triangulation, propaganda, and control.
Yeah. So, given the fact that this show is about mirrors, and I know you've been part of my program for a long time, and I know it's been really challenging to kind of get to the issue. I don't want to say the issue because I know you've looked at the issue, but have you seen what this whole part of your life could have been mirroring to you? What, and just to remind everybody, my definition of mirrors is I usually start out the show with some slides, but I decided to just jump right in this time because what you have to say is so important. But how I define mirrors is the universal truth that energy can't be pushed down. And I use my little seesaw example. If you push down one side of a seesaw, the other side comes up. So there's something that all of us are pushing down and is coming up in this cultishness. And I know that, you know, you don't have to get personal about it, but on a bigger scale, on a broader understanding, what is all of this cult stuff mirroring to us as a culture? Have you thought about that?
I have. And I feel like I'm going to be a little biased in this because I noticed that for myself the mirror is definitely control. My need to or desire to control my surroundings and make people see things my way because my way is right, right? Everyone has that. Everyone feels they are right, you know, and some
Yes.
of us more than others have that need to, you know, push an idea. And you know, it helps us cope. That's what religion is about. When everyone believes what you believe, it helps you cope with the fact that you are going to die and you don't know what's going to happen afterwards. But if everyone believes what you believe, then there's that confirmation bias. And you know, okay, so then you know what I believe about the afterlife is real, and that's comforting. For you know, on the macro scale, I still believe it's about I still believe that it's about control. And I think it's more about our complicity in control of other people. So because we're complicit in the control of other people, we have this control pushed back on us, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Like I feel this mirror is getting so much bigger, especially now where we're losing democracy, right? Like how big do you need the mirror to be? We've been complicit in this controlling system that's been toxic and actually bad for people for so long, and it goes even beyond just America. You know, let's take it all the way back to England and you know just all of the imperialism, you know, and even before that. I mean, you know, the modern humans killed off we killed off the Neanderthals. You know, why did we do that? Was it about control of the land? Like what, you know, I feel like it goes back so far and like we're looking at ourselves right now and having to basically reap what we sowed. We are complicit in this control, so now it's coming back on us, you know. That's the
Yeah.
way I see it. I mean, obviously I would like to process, as you know, Royce's version of processing. I would like to process, you know, all of racism and all of exploitation, you know, for everyone. But I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can process the whole world, but I know that I have the right questions, and I know that my questions are leading to the right answers.
Yes. Um, so
Was that satisfactory, Royce?
Oh, that was great. My heart is pounding here. I'm like, oh yeah, you're so right. It goes back to the beginning. It really does.
Yeah.
And my sense about it, which I say in every show, is we have to clean up our side of the mirror. That's all we can do. We can, be the 100th monkey, work on ourselves, get conscious, see our mirrors, clear it out so that we don't need what's happening in America. We don't need that new president to show that mirror to us in a big way. We can come from love. We don't have to come from fear, because what I'm hearing you say is that we're all just coming from fear. We get sucked into all of this. Why would we vote for Donald Trump? We're afraid. Why would we get sucked into a cult? We're afraid, So,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
And why don't you leave the cult, even though you know that it's bad for you? It's because you're afraid that what's on outside, the other way is worse.
Yeah.
And that's politically too.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm working on my blog for the end of the week. I do this weekly blog called Royce's Ramblings, and I'm talking about the fact that what would it look like if the world shifted from fear to love? And it's really hard for us to imagine what it could be. I mean, would we all be sitting around singing Kumbaya? What would it look like? And I think that once we get a sense of what it would look like from within, that, oh, this is how I would live if I wasn't coming from fear. We can expand that and create that on this planet. And I'm thankful that a lot of this stuff is being brought up by you and by Trump and by whoever else, so that we can get it, so it can be in our face, and so that we can finally resolve it. So there's my lecture for the day. So what is the next step for you? We only have like 2 minutes. What is the next step for you with all of this?
Well, like you mentioned before, Azyzza Prieste, am going to film school right now, and I have so many, it just comes to me. I've got so many creative ideas of how to get this message across, and try to do it subtly, because I don't want to preach, but I do want to create kind of a counter propaganda to the normal propaganda that we do get through film and through the media, no matter what medium it is. But I do want to provide somewhat of a counter propaganda and just get people thinking. I'm letting go of forcing people to see things. I just want you to think. That's all. So I'm forced to be on social media now. So I actually just got on Instagram. I've been away from social media because it's so toxic, and I saw that coming a long time ago, just like I saw the cults. But I'm on Instagram literally as of yesterday. You can find me at Azyzza Prieste, AZYZZA Prieste. And if you want to just email me to, like, I don't know, for like a speaking engagement, or just to be updated when the website is up and I have some films or whatever up. I'm also a performer, so whenever I have any of those things up, if you want to be notified, you can just email me at azyzza.prieste@gmail.com, and that is AZYZZA.PRIESTE@gmail.com. But the next step is trying to do that, and trying to keep my head on, because sometimes I really don't know what's up and down.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Azyzza. I really appreciate you coming today and sharing your wisdom and your experience.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And I always forget to announce this. I am starting a new 10-week course all about self-sabotage and getting past it. And it's on January 26th. And if you're interested, just follow me and find me on my website and sign up. And thank you so much. And we'll see everybody in a couple of weeks.